Let's start with basic AWS account setup. If you are an experienced AWS user, you can skip this video and check the summary page to review my recommendations. Once logged into the AWS account, search for the IAM service. IAM stands from the Identity and Access Management. This service is used to define and manage the permissions granted to users or AWS services to allow perform actions on your behalf. We will use IAM to enable the multi-factor authentication (MFA) for the AWS root user. I strongly recommend using the MFA to increase the security of an AWS account. Go to Security Alerts and click the Enable MFA link. Activate the MFA. You can choose the type of your MFA device. I'll use the virtual device. I am using the Google Authenticator. You can install this application on your Android or iOS device. Scan the QR code and type 2 MFA codes generated by your application. Congratulations, we successfully enabled the MFA on our AWS root user. Let's confirm that our root user does not have any access keys. Access keys are used for the programmatic access. This type of access should not be available for the root user. That is a good security practice. I am using a brand new AWS account. My root user does not have any access keys by default, and I will leave it this way. Let's go to the account settings. I recommend you update the default change password policy. I will enforce passwords with at least 20 characters, containing uppercase letters, lowercase letters, numbers, a special character. I want the password to expire after 30 days and allow users to change passwords. Finally, I want to prevent users from reusing the same passwords within a year. This configuration ensures that users of this AWS account will use secure passwords. Speaking about users, let's create our dedicated user used for development. Go to Users and click Add Users. Give your user a name. I will call mine Developer, but you can use any meaningful name. During development, we will use the programmatic access for CLI, command line interface, and Python SDK. For education purposes, we will use the console access to get familiar with AWS services. I will use a custom password and uncheck the requirement to change this password at the user sign-in. Typically, we want to enforce the user to change the default password, but this time we will be acting as a developer user, so there is no need to change this password once again. It is a good practice to assign users to groups, so let's create a group. I will call mine Developers and attach the Administration Access Policy. The Administration Access Policy should be used with care, because it provides full access to AWS services and resources. Let's create our group. If you attach additional users to this group, they will obtain policies defined for that group. This way, you can keep your policies consistent and manageable even in environments with hundreds of IAM users. Just in case you wondered, you can have up to 5,000 users in an AWS account. I will add a training tag to this user. Tagging resources is a good practice to keep them organized within your AWS account. Tagging is a huge topic on its own. During this foundation training, I will not go into details of tagging strategies. I recommend you read the best practices in AWS documentation. You can find link below. Finally, let's review and create our user. Copy your access key ID and secret access key and store them in safe location. Those credentials allow for unlimited access to your AWS account due to the Administration Access Policy attached to this user. I am showing my access credentials for demonstration purposes. I will change them off screen as I don't want my AWS account to get compromised this way. Let's go to the dashboard for a second. If you want to, you can customize your sign-in URL in order to make it easier to remember. This sign-in URL is used to log in to the AWS console. we will use it in the next lecture to log in as the developer user. You can sign out from the AWS console. We will not use the root user during this training anymore. This is a good security practice to avoid using the root user and use dedicated IAM users instead. Congratulations, your root account is now secure. Let's summarize what we covered. We enabled the multi-factor authentication for the root user. We verified that there are no access keys defined for the root user. We changed the password policy to enforce strong passwords used by the AWS console users and created IAM user, which we are going to use during this development. Thank you for watching and till next time.